Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you are new to my channel. So, it is day 14 of my 31 Days of Halloween Horror series for the month of Spooktacular here. And we're going to take a look at a sequel to a movie that I reviewed the original last week, a week ago. And I was actually going to take a look at this movie, the sequel, later in the month, but I decided, I didn't really care for the first movie that much, so I might as well let's get the second movie out of the way. And that, of course, is The House is October Built 2 from 2017. Like I said, I reviewed this one last week. So now we're going to take a look at the sequel to this. The House is October Built 2 from 2017. So let's just go ahead and get into it here. The House is October Built 2, titled Hellbent in some countries, is a 2017 American found footage horror film directed by Bobby Rowe, who also stars in the film, a sequel to the 2014 film The House is October Built. Its plot follows five characters suffering from trauma a year after the events of the previous film, wherein they were kidnapped and held at a haunted house attraction. So basically, after being rescued from their ordeal at the hands of the Blue Skeleton haunted house, five friends, Brandy, Zach, Bobby, Mikey, and Jeff, decide to get through their post traumatic stress by facing their fears and going on another haunted house road trip. Brandy refuses to be part of the road trip despite the group's continuous efforts to have her join. She finally agrees to come along as long as the group agrees not to do any extreme haunts. Brandy meets with Dr. Margie Kerr to talk about coping with her past trauma. The group then goes to visit the Halloween capital of the world in Anoka, Minnesota, and a haunted hayride where they are told to find the extreme haunt Hellbent. So yeah, that's kind of the setup, the premise, the beginning of The House is October Built 2. As far as the cast goes, pretty much the same cast. Brandy Schaefer is Brandy, Zach Andrews is Zach, Bobby Rowe is Bobby, Mikey Rowe is Mikey, Jeff Larson is Jeff, and Andrea Hayes is Lily Babs, the bearded lady. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for The House is October Built 2 from 2017. Um, I really don't know why they made a sequel to the original, to be honest with you, because even though I wasn't crazy about this movie, there is some things there, and the way that it ends to kind of leave you on a creepy note. And unfortunately, this movie pretty much undoes everything in the first movie without adding anything with the second movie to the first movie. So not only does it not add anything, but it takes away. So it's kind of like the worst of both worlds from a sequel standpoint. So let's get into it, starting with the things that I liked, and they're very few. Um, but like the first movie, just the idea of people driving around the country, going to all these different haunted attractions, it's just a really cool, appealing idea to me, and I would love to do that if I had the time, the money, the resources. I'd be down for it. Like go to every state and find the best haunts that state has. I wouldn't necessarily at my age need to do the extreme haunts. I'm okay with going through the haunted houses or the haunted hay rides or the haunted alleys, whatever they have to offer. But I don't necessarily need to be kidnapped and buried underground. So I also have to say, I thought the music used in the beginning of this movie during the opening credits was pretty good. Um, I thought it had a good beat to it, and I liked the music. Some of the haunted attractions they visit, not just the houses in this movie, they run across, caught my attention, especially since we spend more time in my home state of Minnesota, where some of these attractions are, with interesting costumes, makeup, and atmosphere throughout these attractions. Yeah, in the first movie, it was all haunted houses, and here it's more of a variety of haunted attractions. So that was kind of interesting to see. The aerial shots with the drone camera that one of the characters gets for this movie, it's pretty cool. I think that's really the only thing that adds something new to the franchise that the first movie didn't have. It looks cool. In general, I think it's weird because I don't think this movie's better than the first movie from a story and narrative standpoint. But in some ways, the found footage aspect, the technical aspects of this movie's better. And I think that's probably because this movie had a bit of a higher budget than the original movie did. Because of the success of that first movie, of course, that's why they made the sequel and they had more money to kick around with it. So I will say that the found footage aspects really didn't bother me in this movie as much as the first movie. It wasn't quite as shaky cam as the first movie. Um, The cinematography is better. Like I said, talking about that drone camera with the overhead shots, it's, you know, you got some pretty good imagery and scenery there. And then my final pro is I think the dialogue between the characters is a little bit more realistic and a little less scripted. Felt a little bit more natural in this movie than maybe in the first movie. And they probably know each other better too by this point because it was 3 years after they made the original. So from a technical standpoint, there's a few good things about this movie that I thought they improved upon from the original. But now we got to get into the cons. And this movie is, in essence, a complete rehash of the first movie with very little new or interesting offered. You have the same five characters, the same driving around, the same, probably the same motorhome that they were in, doing the same thing, without any of the tension buildup or any of the stalking or creepiness that the first movie had. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds in that regard. How this movie begins was a problem for me too, because as much as I was on the fence about not liking the first movie, the ending, the third act, I thought was the best part of the movie, and the way that that movie ends, it kind of has some ambiguity to it, which I liked. And this is the big reason why they didn't need a sequel, frankly, especially if they were going to go this route. But how this movie begins totally ruins an already shaky ending to the first movie with having these same characters rescued, and that removes the creepiness and the effectiveness of the end of that first movie. So, yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It's just if you're going to do a sequel to that first movie, you got to do it with different characters. Um, you can't ruin the first movie. The one good thing that I liked about it, there is no real fear or tension, as I mentioned, that's built up in this movie. That's one thing the first movie did, at least, is you weren't really sure what was going on. You weren't really sure who was real and who wasn't, who was part of a haunt and who wasn't, how real it was and how it wasn't. In this movie, you don't have any of those. There's none of that tension or suspense. We kind of know what's going on. Um, but it's just following these same characters around where they are doing the same kind of things. Not nearly as engaging. The ending of this movie is actually worse than the ending of the first movie, even after the ending of the first movie was ruined by the beginning of this movie. But the ending of this movie asks you to suspend so much disbelief and logic that it's just it makes it an unbelievably bad experience. Makes you feel like they think you're an idiot, frankly, as a viewer. The first movie really didn't do that. I'll at least give it that much credit. But this movie, they really think you're dumb. The characters' motivations in this movie are so much worse than the first one, too. I mean, in the first one, you could at least understand you had this group of friends who were all kind of Halloween slash horror nerds, doing all these different haunts around the country. But in this movie, given what happened to them in the first movie, and even though they got rescued and all that, the fact that it's only a year later and there's only one of these five characters that is, shall we say, apprehensive, and of course that character ends up going along with the rest of them at the end of the day, which we all knew they would. But the character motivations are just so bad here because of that first movie. It's not only the fact that they're doing this again, but what they are doing it for. It's so 21st century, so 2010 to present, basically nonsense. Basically, it's related to money and fame. I hated it as a result, and I didn't care about much. I didn't care about much of what was happening in this movie as well because of that. So yeah, this is going to be kind of a short review, guys. I just don't have that much to say. Um, this is not a good sequel to an already not great movie, at least for me. And I know that's probably more of a personal because I know a lot of people do like the first movie. I think most of the consensus is that not a lot of people like the second movie, so my review kind of goes along with that. But I almost think it's going to make it harder for me to watch the first movie too now and get the same kind of the little bit of enjoyment that I got out of it, knowing that this movie exists. So overall, guys, I'm going to give the Houses October Built 2 a 6 out of 10. The only reason I'm giving it a six are because of those technical aspects and some of the haunted attractions that they run into, especially in my home state of Minnesota. I thought were kind of interesting and cool. Definitely a higher budget, a little bit more production there, but and less shaky cam. Uh, so for me, that gives you a few points. But as far as anything else goes, no. This didn't need to happen. It didn't need to exist. Even this one's shaky for me, but I was at least looking forward to watching this one. Now I'm really not, thanks to this one. So that's my thoughts about the House's October Built 2 from 2017. 6 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below what you guys think of this sequel, the House's October Built 2. Do you like it more or less? The same as the first one or less than the first one? Why or why not? Comment down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming 31 days of horror movie review videos, and as well as any of my great horror content coming out after this month and for the rest of the year. So, with that being said, I hope everybody's having a good spooktacular month of October. Hope you're enjoying this series, these reviews, and as always, stay scared. Bye.